The water climbed the tile wall in a hard white rush. Children screamed. Parents backed away from the pool deck, slipping on puddles beneath the gold banners that read, "Welcome home to Harbor Crest." Grant Holloway stood near the podium, his silk tie dark with spray. He pointed at the black man kneeling beside the emergency valve. "That's him," Grant shouted. "The pool guy did this." Daniel Reed didn't look up. One hand held the valve wheel. The other pressed a phone to his ear. His work shirt was soaked through. Around his wrist, a small bracelet made of pale blue shells clung to his skin. "Keep everyone beyond the glass doors," he said calmly. "No one comes back until the pressure drops." 3 hours earlier, Grant had laughed at Daniel in front of investors. Now the same man was begging the crowd to believe him. What Grant did not know was that Daniel had spent 12 years designing safety systems meant to stop disasters before they became headlines. And what Daniel had already placed in the hands of the city inspector could bury Harbor Crest's developer for good. If you have ever been judged before anyone knew your story, stay with us. At 5:42 every morning, before the lobby lights of Harbor Crest warmed the marble floors, Daniel Reed unlocked the pool gate. The metal latch gave the same soft click every day. Daniel liked that sound. It meant the building was still asleep. No residents complaining about water spots on their balcony glass. No leasing agents rushing through the courtyard in polished shoes. No delivery trucks breathing smoke into the narrow service lane. Just the pool. Blue water, white tile, the low hum of pumps beneath the deck. He set his canvas tool bag beside the maintenance cabinet, rolled up the sleeves of his navy work shirt and checked the chemical readings. Chlorine, pH, water temperature, pressure. The numbers sat where they should, for now. Daniel wrote them into a small black notebook. His handwriting was clean and narrow, each line straight even without a ruler. A pigeon landed on the roof of the cabana. It watched him skim 2 leaves from the surface. "You're early," a small voice said behind him. Daniel turned. Maya stood at the gate in a yellow raincoat, though there was no rain. Her backpack hung low against her knees. Her hair was gathered into 2 uneven puffs, one slightly higher than the other. "You're supposed to be at the front entrance," Daniel said. "I was, and?" "Mrs. Park said I could come say bye." Daniel glanced toward the courtyard. Evelyn Park, the morning property manager, stood near the service door with a paper coffee cup in each hand. She lifted one shoulder as if to say, "She asked nicely." Maya walked to Daniel and held out her fist. "Show me." Daniel raised his wrist. Around it was a bracelet made from pale blue shells, uneven wooden beads, and a single silver letter M. Maya had made it at school 3 weeks ago. The knot had been tied so tightly that Daniel had to cut it off at night and retie it in the morning. She inspected it with grave concentration. "You still have it. You said you would." "I did." Maya nodded, her face softened. Daniel had learned that promises mattered most in the smallest places. Not the promises people made at hospitals, in courtrooms, or at funerals. Those were often too big to hold. The important ones were quieter. "I'll be at pickup by 4. I'll make pancakes on Saturday. I'll wear the bracelet." He crouched and zipped her raincoat higher. "Lunch packed?" She tapped her backpack. "Homework folder?" Another tap. "Did you practice your reading?" Maya looked toward Evelyn. "I read the chapter twice." "Did you understand it twice?" She frowned at him. Daniel smiled. "That means no." "I understood the sad part." "What was the sad part?" "The girl thought her dad forgot her recital." Daniel paused for half a second. "And did he?" "He was late," Maya said. "But he came." Daniel nodded. "That happens sometimes." "But he should called. He should have." Maya studied his face, then reached into her coat pocket and handed him a folded piece of paper. "For later," she said. Daniel opened it carefully. It was a drawing of the pool, a long blue rectangle, a yellow sun in one corner, a tall stick figure wearing a navy shirt, beside him a much smaller stick figure with 2 round puffs for hair. Across the top, in large crooked letters, Maya had written, "Asterisk, my dad fixes things." Asterisk. Daniel folded the paper again and placed it inside the chest pocket of his shirt. "Thank you, Bug. Don't lose it." "I won't." Evelyn called from the courtyard. "Bus is here, Maya." Maya stepped backward, then rushed forward again and hugged Daniel around the neck. Her arms were thin but determined. "Don't let people be mean to you today," she whispered. Daniel looked over her shoulder at the still water. "I'll do my best." "That's not what I said." A laugh moved through him before he could stop it. He said. Maya stepped away, satisfied at last. Daniel watched her cross the courtyard, her yellow raincoat flashing between the planters. At the bus, she turned, lifted one hand, and pointed at his bracelet one final time. Then she was gone. The pool area became quiet again. Daniel stood there for a moment longer. Harbor Crest had opened 2 years earlier on the edge of the city's old industrial district. The brochures called it waterfront-inspired living. The water was actually a narrow canal 3 blocks away, brown after storms and lined with warehouses. But the building had a rooftop garden, a fitness center, and a courtyard pool framed by ornamental palms. The residents liked that part. On weekends, They took photos beside the water and posted them before breakfast. Daniel had been working there for 8 months. To most people, he was the pool guy. The man who cleared leaves, tested water, repaired filters, and answered complaints when someone's expensive sunglasses slipped through the drain grate. That was fine with him. A job did not have to explain a man's whole life. He lifted the access panel beneath the deck and climbed down into the pump room. The air changed at once. Warm, damp, sharp with chlorine and old concrete. Daniel switched on the overhead light. 4 pumps sat in a row, their steel housings painted gray. Pipes ran along the walls in thick blue lines, disappearing behind panels and beneath the pool deck. A new section of piping gleamed near the far valve assembly. Too new, he walked toward it. 3 weeks ago, Harbor Crest had begun a summer enhancement project. New underwater lights, new jets, a redesigned filtration system meant to make the water look brighter in promotional photos. The work had been rushed. Daniel had said so on the first day. The subcontractors had shrugged. The site supervisor had told him the drawings were above his pay grade. Daniel had not argued, he had simply watched. Now he ran 2 fingers across the join where the new pipe met the old system. The sealant had dried unevenly. A thin gray ridge pushed out from the coupling. He leaned closer. The pipe was marked with a manufacturer code. Daniel's eyes stayed on it. Then he pulled out his phone, took 3 photographs and zoomed in. The code was wrong. Not wrong in the way a careless worker might mix up a box in a supply room. Wrong in the way that made his stomach go still. This type of pipe was rated for low-pressure landscape irrigation. It did not belong in a high-pressure commercial circulation line. Daniel checked the pressure gauge. The needle trembled just below the green zone. Then it twitched upward, a tiny movement. Most people would not have noticed. Daniel did. He took out his black notebook and wrote the time, *6:18 a.m. From above, faint through the concrete, came the sound of wheels rolling across tile. A cart, then a man's voice. "Reed?" Daniel looked toward the stairs. Grant Holloway's voice carried easily, polished even underground. "Reed, where are you?" Daniel slipped the notebook into his pocket. He looked once more at the wrong pipe, at the trembling needle, at the thin gray sealant around the joint. Then he climbed the stairs. Grant stood at the pool gate in a cream-colored suit, holding a tablet under one arm. Behind him, 2 young marketing assistants arranged white lounge cushions as if they were setting a stage. Grant smiled without warmth. "Good," he said. "There you are." Daniel closed the gate behind him. "We need to talk about the launch event." His eyes drifted past Grant to the water. The surface was smooth, almost perfectly smooth, but beneath it the pumps had begun to hum in a deeper key. Grant Holloway did not wait for Daniel to answer. He walked past the pool gate and stopped at the center of the deck where the morning sun struck the water hard enough to make it look expensive. "Saturday," Grant said, tapping the tablet beneath his arm. 11 a.m. press, investors, council people. The whole point is to show them that Harbor Crest is more than another apartment building with a gym and overpriced coffee in the lobby. Daniel stood beside the equipment cabinet. "I know about the event. Then you know what I need." Grant turned the tablet around. A rendering filled the screen. The pool was brighter than it looked in real life. The tiles glowed. The water was full of laughing children who clearly had never swallowed chlorine or stepped on a loose drain cover. In the background, the Harbor Crest Tower reflected a perfect blue sky. At the bottom was a slogan above explanation. Daniel looked from the image to the pool. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "Keep it perfect." Grant said it as if perfection could be scheduled. "The new lighting comes online tomorrow night. The jets are being adjusted today. By Saturday, I want glass clear water. No equipment noise, no maintenance carts, no warning signs. Nothing that makes people remember this is a building full of pipes." Daniel nodded once. "There's an issue with the new circulation line," he said. Grant's smile thinned. "There is. The pipe installed near the pressure manifold isn't rated for this system. It should be checked before the event." One of the marketing assistants glanced at the other. They were both young enough to think they had disappeared whenever they held a clipboard. Grant lowered the tablet. "Is the pool leaking?" "Not yet." "Is the water unsafe?" "I can't say that until it's inspected." Grant exhaled through his nose. Daniel kept his voice level. "The pressure has been moving. The coupling needs to be verified." "By whom?" "A licensed plumbing inspector at minimum. Ideally someone who can review the installation documents." Grant looked around the quiet courtyard as if the palms and lounge chairs might offer a more useful answer. Then he gave a small laugh. "Daniel, you clean pools. I maintain the system. You maintain it. Good. Then maintain it." "The material is not designed for this load." Grant stepped closer. He was not a large man. His shoulders were narrow beneath the cream suit, and his hands looked soft, but he had learned the kind of posture that made other people lean away from him. "Our contractor has insurance," Grant said. "Our contractor has engineers. Our contractor has been building properties longer than you have been skimming leaves out of water." Daniel's eyes rested on Grant's face. I'm not questioning the contractor's title, he said. I'm saying the pipe should be inspected. For a moment, Grant said nothing. The marketing assistant stopped arranging cushions. Then Grant smiled again, wider this time. You know what I think, he said. I think you enjoy finding reasons to slow things down. It makes the job feel important. Daniel reached for his black notebook. I'll put the concern in writing. Grant's expression changed. Not much, just enough. Don't send that to anyone, he said. Daniel looked at him. I'll send it to the property office. Send it to me first. The property office needs a maintenance record. Grant stepped between Daniel and the cabinet. No. The property office needs a clean launch week. That's what it needs. A breeze pushed across the water. One of the white banners tied near the cabana snapped against its frame. Daniel noticed Evelyn Park standing near the side entrance. She held a stack of work orders against her chest. Her coffee was gone now. Her eyes moved from Grant to Daniel, then to the open gate of the equipment room. Grant noticed her too. Evelyn, he called. You heard us, right? Evelyn walked over slowly. Mr. Holloway, Daniel is concerned about a pipe. Evelyn looked at Daniel. Is there a safety issue? Grant answered before he could. There is a maintenance question, a small one. He is being thorough. Daniel did not correct him immediately. Evelyn had worked at Harbor Crest longer than Daniel. She knew the residents' names, the elevator schedules, the habits of every delivery driver. She also knew when people spoke in sentences designed to close a door. Should I log it? She asked. Grant's smile held. No need to create noise before the event. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the work orders. Daniel saw it, a small movement. Nothing anyone else would have noticed. Please log it, Daniel said. Time, location, and the fact that I requested an inspection. Grant turned his head toward him. The courtyard seemed to pause. The pumps hummed beneath the deck. Grant's voice lost its softness. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, Daniel said. I'm making a record. One of the assistants looked down at the tablet. Evelyn kept her eyes on Daniel. Then she nodded once. I'll log it. Grant stared at her for 2 seconds too long. All right, he said. Fine, log the concern. But no calls, no city forms, no outside inspector. Not until I review it. Daniel did not agree. Grant's jaw tightened. You have a daughter, don't you? He asked. The question arrived gently. That made it worse. Daniel's gaze moved to the pale blue shells around his wrist. Yes, I've seen her around here, sweet kid. Daniel said nothing. Grant looked toward the building entrance, toward the sidewalk where the school bus had disappeared almost an hour earlier. You need steady work, Grant continued. A stable place, I respect that. So don't turn a loose fitting into a career mistake. He picked up his tablet and walked away. The assistants followed him quickly, their shoes clicking over the tile. Evelyn remained. For a while, neither she nor Daniel spoke. Then she asked, Is it really that bad? Daniel looked through the open equipment room door. It could become bad fast. Why would they use the wrong pipe? Daniel's eyes stayed on the dark stairwell. Because the right pipe costs more. Because a deadline makes people think consequences are for somebody else. Evelyn looked back toward the tower. Grant signed off on this project. I know. You think he knew? I think someone knew. The word sat between them. Evelyn shifted the stack of work orders to her other arm. If you make a report, he'll come after you. Daniel gave a faint nod. He already tried. At noon, Daniel checked the pressure again. The needle had risen another fraction. At 2, he reviewed the contractor's shipment labels in the service office. Several pages were missing from the maintenance binder. At 3, he found a discarded carton behind the loading dock. The manufacturer code on its side matched the code on the pipe below the pool. He photographed it. At 3:45, his phone buzzed. Maya's school. Daniel answered on the first ring. Mr. Reed, said the receptionist. Maya's waiting. She said you're usually here by now. Daniel looked at the clock. 3:46. For the first time that day, his face changed. I'm on my way. He grabbed his tool bag, the black notebook, and the folded drawing from his shirt pocket. Before leaving, he went back to the pool deck. The water lay still under the afternoon light, too still. Daniel crouched near the overflow drain and listened. Below the tile, far beneath the bright blue surface, something knocked once inside the line, then again. A dull, hollow sound. Like a fist against a closed door, he stood, called the property office, and left one message. My name is Daniel Reed. This is a maintenance safety notice for the Harbor Crest pool system. Please timestamp this call. Then he walked fast toward his truck. On his wrist, Maya's little shells clicked softly together, and under the pool, the pressure continued to rise. The next morning, Daniel arrived at Harbor Crest before sunrise. The courtyard was empty except for a delivery van idling near the loading dock. Its headlights cut across the wet pavement and caught the silver lettering on the building's entrance sign, Harbor Crest Residences. Daniel parked beside the service gate and stayed in the truck for a moment. On the passenger seat lay a paper bag with Maya's lunchbox inside. She had forgotten it on the kitchen counter. A purple dinosaur sticker smiled from the lid. Daniel looked at the time, 6:07 a.m. He could drop it at school before 8. There was time. But first he needed to see the pool. He stepped out, locked the truck, and crossed the courtyard with his tool bag in one hand. The bracelet on his wrist tapped softly against the metal buckle of his watch. At the equipment room, the first thing he noticed was the smell. Not chlorine, heat. A warm plastic smell, faint but unmistakable. Daniel stopped at the open door. Someone had been inside. The light was on. A rag lay on the floor beneath the pressure manifold. The black rubber mat, usually flat against the concrete, had been pulled aside. He set down his bag and walked in. The pressure gauge was no longer trembling below the green band. It sat just inside the yellow. Daniel stared at it. Then he looked at the manual shutoff valve. The red handle had been turned, not fully open, but open farther than he had left it. He crouched beside the manifold. The gray sealant around the new coupling had changed overnight. A thin line had formed through its center, no wider than a thread. Daniel took a photograph, then another from closer in. A drop of water gathered at the seam. It hung there for 1 second, then fell onto the concrete. Daniel stood and pulled out his phone. He called the number for the subcontractor listed in the maintenance binder. A woman answered after 4 rings. Brightline Aquatic Systems. "This is Daniel Reed from Harbor Crest," he said. "I need the name of the licensed installer who signed off on the circulation line replacement." There was a pause. "Could you repeat the property name?" "Harbor Crest Residences, the pool upgrade project." Keyboard clicks sounded faintly through the line. Daniel waited. "I don't show a completed installation under that address," the woman said. Daniel's hand tightened around the phone. "The work was finished last week. I see a preliminary estimate, no final contract, no completion certificate. Who submitted the estimate?" "Mr. Grant Holloway's office." Daniel looked at the new pipe. "Did Brightline deliver the materials?" "Not according to our records." "Did you send anyone to the site?" "No, sir." Daniel thanked her and ended the call. For several seconds, the pump room was silent except for the low mechanical throb beneath the floor. The project had not merely been rushed, it had been made to look legitimate. He opened the maintenance binder again and turned to the contractor paperwork. The invoices carried Brightline's logo. The job number looked real. The signature at the bottom looked hurried, almost copied. Daniel took photographs of every page. At 6:31, footsteps sounded on the stairs. He did not look up. Grant Holloway entered the room holding a coffee cup and wearing a dark blue suit. "You're here early," Grant said. "So are you." Grant leaned against the doorframe. "Big day." Daniel closed the binder. "Did you authorize someone to adjust the shutoff valve?" Grant sipped his coffee. "I'm not a technician. Did you tell someone to enter this room?" Grant's eyes narrowed. "You're asking me questions now? I'm documenting a safety issue." "You've said that already. The pressure has increased. The system is new. The system is failing." Grant gave a dry laugh. "Failing. The installation company has no record of doing this work." That made Grant still. "Not long. Just long enough." Then he walked farther into the room and lowered his voice. "You called the contractor? I verified the paperwork." "You had no authority to do that." Daniel looked at the pressure gauge. "I had a responsibility to do that." Grant set his coffee down on a steel shelf. "I hired you to maintain a pool. You hired me to maintain a safe pool. I hired you to do the job you have, not the job you imagine." Daniel picked up his tool bag. "Then I need to be clear. The pool should be closed until an independent inspection is completed." Grant stared at him. Outside, the building began to wake. An elevator chimed somewhere above them. A child laughed in the hallway, a door shut. Grant stepped closer. "You know what people see when they look at you, Reed?" Daniel did not answer. "They see a man in a work shirt carrying a net and a bottle of test strips. They do not see an expert. They do not see a decision maker. They see someone who should be grateful to be working at a place like this." Daniel's face did not move. Grant continued. "Do not make the mistake of believing a clipboard changes that." The words landed in the hot, narrow room. Daniel picked up his black notebook and wrote the time. 6:36 a.m. Grant watched him write. "What are you doing?" "Making a record." "You really think that little notebook protects you?" "No." Daniel capped his pen. "But it helps me remember." Grant's eyes hardened. For the first time, the smile disappeared completely. At 7:10, 2 leasing agents began setting up tables around the pool. White umbrellas opened over the lounge chairs. A florist arrived with tall glass vases filled with white orchids. The event was not until Saturday, but Grant had ordered a preview breakfast for several potential investors. Daniel stood at the pool gate with Evelyn Park. She held a printed work order in her hand. "I found something," she said quietly. Daniel turned toward her. "The security log. Someone used a master key to access the equipment room at 11:48 last night." "Who?" Evelyn looked uncomfortable. "The log says Grant." Daniel said nothing. "There's more," she added. "The camera facing the service corridor went offline for 19 minutes. Can you print the log?" "Already did." She handed him the page. Daniel folded it carefully and placed it inside his notebook. A voice rose behind them. Why is the gate closed? A woman in a linen dress stood with a boy of about 6 beside her. The boy wore swim goggles around his neck. He pressed both hands to the metal bars. I want to see the fish lights, he said. His mother smiled at Daniel. He means the new lights. We heard they were testing them today. Daniel looked at the boy, then at the pool. The water reflected the morning sky, bright and harmless. I'm sorry, he said. The pool is closed for maintenance. The woman's smile faded, but the leasing office said, It's closed, Daniel repeated. Before she could respond, Grant appeared from the courtyard with 2 investors behind him. He looked at the locked gate, then at Daniel. What is this? Grant asked. Daniel held his gaze. A safety closure. The boy's mother stepped back. The investors exchanged a glance, and beneath the deck the pressure gauge began to climb. Grant Holloway looked at the padlock on the pool gate as if it had appeared there to insult him personally. The 2 investors stood behind him. One was a silver-haired man in a charcoal suit. The other wore a cream blouse and carried a leather portfolio against her side. Both had the practiced stillness of people used to deciding whether something was worth their money. The little boy in goggles pressed his face to the bars. Is somebody hurt? His mother asked. No one is hurt, Daniel said. Grant lifted one hand before Daniel could say anything more. There has been a minor misunderstanding, he announced. Nothing that affects the pool's operation. Daniel turned toward him. Mr. Holloway. Grant kept his smile in place. Our maintenance staff can be very cautious. The words were smooth, almost friendly. That was what made several residents relax. The mother nodded uncertainly. So it's safe. Daniel looked at the child, then at the water. He thought of the split forming under the pump room coupling. He thought of the altered valve. He thought of the delivery documents that did not exist. It needs inspection, he said. Grant's smile vanished. Not fully, only at the corners. Daniel, he said. A word. He did not wait for an answer. He turned and walked toward the cabana. Daniel followed. Behind him, Evelyn stayed near the gate. She did not speak, but Daniel saw her pull her phone from her pocket. Inside the cabana, the air smelled of fresh paint and expensive candles. A row of glass water bottles sat on a tray beside brochures advertising penthouse units. Grant shut the door. The sound was soft. It felt final. You embarrassed me, Grant said. I closed an unsafe pool. You made my investors question the property. I told them the truth. Grant stared at him. Then he walked to the brochure table, picked up one of the glossy pages and held it between 2 fingers. Do you understand what this weekend is? He asked. Yes, no. You understand the version of it available to someone like you. You see folded chairs and buffet tables. You see extra work. What you do not see is the financing behind this building, the permits, the people who take calls from me because I make things happen. Daniel's eyes stayed level. Then those people should know the pool isn't safe. Grant dropped the brochure onto the table. You don't get to decide what is safe. The pressure data does. You have been here 8 months. The pipe has been here 1 week. Grant stepped closer. His voice became quiet. You are standing in a courtyard where apartments cost more than you will make in 10 years. You keep talking like someone handed you authority because you know a few technical words. Daniel's fingers rested against the edge of his notebook in his pocket. He did not take it out. Grant watched him. Say something, he said. Daniel looked at the polished floor between them. A drop of water had fallen from his work boot and left a dark mark on the pale wood. Then he raised his eyes. I sent a maintenance notice. I requested an inspection. Until the issue is cleared, the pool stays closed. Grant's face tightened. You are not in charge here. No, Daniel said, but I'm here. For a moment, the cabana was silent. Outside, a fork scraped against a plate. Someone laughed near the leasing table. The normal sounds of a building continued, unaware that something beneath its clean surface had begun to fail. Grant reached for his phone. Fine, he said. You want to make this official? We'll make it official. He pressed the screen. Rita, it's Grant. I need human resources on the line. Daniel did not move. Grant glanced at him. You're suspended pending review. For reporting a safety issue. For insubordination. For disrupting an investor meeting. For creating panic among residents. I did not create the risk. Grant's eyes flashed. You are the risk. He ended the call. Daniel stood very still. The old version of himself would have argued. The man who had once spent nights inside municipal planning offices, surrounded by blueprints and emergency protocols, would have laid out every code violation from memory. He would have asked questions until everyone in the room felt the answer closing around them. But that man had learned something after the hospital room, after the long, quiet months when Maya was too young to understand why her mother would not come home. Being right did not always make people listen. Sometimes it only made them defend the lie more fiercely. Daniel reached into his pocket and took out his phone. What are you doing? Grant asked. Calling Maya's school. I need to tell them someone else will pick her up. Grant blinked. Daniel dialed. Mrs. Larkin? This is Daniel Reed, Maya's father. I may be delayed this afternoon. Could you please add Evelyn Park as an approved pickup? Grant's mouth opened slightly. Daniel listened, gave Evelyn's number, and ended the call. You can't take company records, Grant said. I'm taking my tools. You're done here. Daniel nodded once. That's your decision. He walked out of the cabana. The courtyard had gone quieter. The investors stood near the pool gate, speaking in low voices. The mother with the boy had moved away from the water, though her son kept looking back at the locked entrance. Evelyn approached Daniel. What happened? She asked. I'm suspended. Her eyes shifted to Grant, who had emerged from the cabana behind them. For what? Being thorough. Evelyn's face changed. A sharpness came into it. Grant raised his voice so the nearby residents could hear. Mr. Reed has chosen to leave early today. We're bringing in another technician to confirm everything is in order. Daniel stopped. Grant looked pleased with himself. Please don't speculate, Grant added. There is no emergency. Daniel turned toward the pool deck. A new sound came from beneath it. A short metallic crack. The water near the deep end trembled, just once. The boy in goggles saw it. Mom, he said. The pool moved. His mother pulled him closer. Grant looked toward the water. His face stayed composed, but one hand went to the knot of his tie. Daniel stepped past Evelyn and walked to the gate. Grant followed him. You are suspended, Grant said. Do not touch anything. Daniel crouched near the overflow drain. A thin stream of water slid across the tile from beneath the grate. It should not have been there. The pool level was not high enough. He placed 2 fingers against the wet surface. Warm. Too warm, he stood. Everyone needs to move away from this side of the deck, Daniel said. Grant laughed once loudly. Don't start. Daniel looked at him. The laughter died. Move them, Daniel said again. Evelyn did not wait for Grant. She lifted both arms and called toward the leasing table. Please step back from the pool area. Everyone behind the planters now. The mother grabbed her son's hand. The investors moved first, then the assistants, then the residents. Grant stood by the cabana watching people retreat from the water. His face had lost its color. Daniel reached for the emergency shutoff key hanging beside the gate. The key was gone. He looked at the empty hook. Then he looked at Grant. Grant did not look back. From under the deck came another crack. This one was louder, and the bright blue water began to rise. For 3 seconds, no one moved. The water continued to creep over the overflow grate, spreading in a thin, bright sheet across the tile. Grant Holloway stood beside the cabana with both hands at his sides. The key was here, Daniel said. Grant looked at the empty hook. Then someone misplaced it. Daniel turned toward the gate. Who has access to this cabinet? Maintenance? Management? Security? Who removed it? Grant's eyes hardened. I don't know. Another crack sounded below the deck. This time, the nearest lounge chair trembled against the tile. A few residents gasped. Daniel stepped closer to the gate and examined the lockbox mounted beside it. The box was locked. The emergency key should have been inside along with the manual override tag. It was not. He looked through the bars toward the pump room stairs. The door below was shut. Evelyn, he called. She came quickly. Call building security. Tell them to clear the courtyard and shut down the service elevator. No one goes into the lower level. Grant rounded on him. You do not give orders here. Daniel faced him. The system is under pressure. If that coupling opens, the water can undermine the deck and flood the pump room. We need the emergency shutoff. You are speculating. I am reading the signs. Grant pointed toward the residents. You are frightening people. Daniel did not raise his voice. People should be frightened when they are standing over a failing pressure line. The words carried farther than he intended. The silver-haired investor heard them. So did the woman with the leather portfolio. She lowered her sunglasses. Did he say failing? She asked. Grant smiled quickly. Our maintenance employee has become dramatic. Daniel looked at her. The pool should have been closed yesterday. The materials used in the circulation line have not been properly certified. Grant stepped between them. That is not an authorized statement. No, Daniel said. It's a factual one. The woman looked at Grant. Is there an inspection report? Grant's mouth opened. Before he could answer, Evelyn's phone rang. She stared at the screen, then she looked at Daniel. It's Maya's school. Daniel's chest tightened. Evelyn answered and listened. Her expression changed. What happened? Daniel asked. Evelyn held up a finger, listening harder. Yes, he's here. I understand. She ended the call. The school had a plumbing issue in the cafeteria, she said. They're dismissing the younger children early. Daniel looked at the time. It was not yet noon. Who is picking her up? Maya said you would. Daniel pulled out his phone. No service. He looked toward the building tower. The signal bars had disappeared. Evelyn, can you call the school back? I'll use the office landline. Grant gave an impatient sigh. This is exactly what I mean. The whole property is being held hostage by one employee's anxiety. Daniel ignored him. Evelyn hurried toward the lobby. Grant followed 2 steps behind Daniel. You need to leave, Grant said. You are suspended. My daughter is being released from school. That is not my problem. Daniel turned. For the first time, something in his face went still enough to make Grant stop talking. No, Daniel said. It isn't. Then he walked toward his truck. At the service gate, he found the delivery van still parked by the loading dock. Its driver stood beside the open rear doors smoking a cigarette. Daniel recognized him. He had seen the man last week, bringing in boxes after sunset. What did you deliver here? Daniel asked. The driver looked confused. Cleaning supplies. For the pool? Not my business. Daniel showed him the photograph of the pipe carton. The driver's cigarette lowered. Where did you get that? Behind this building. The man looked toward the loading dock. I just drove what they loaded. Who loaded it? A guy from the developer's office. Bald, heavyset, called himself Vince. Daniel took out his notebook. Did you sign a delivery record? No. Cash job. Do you remember the company? The driver hesitated. Then he pointed to the truck door. A faded decal near the handle read, Riverside Landscape va Irrigation. Daniel looked at it for a long moment. Irrigation, low-pressure pipe, a fast job, a fake contractor invoice, a missing emergency key. The pieces had stopped looking like carelessness. They looked like a decision. His phone vibrated. One message appeared before the signal vanished again. From Evelyn. Maya is in the lobby. School shuttle dropped her at Harbor Crest. I'm with her. Daniel was already moving. He crossed the courtyard at a run. The front lobby doors opened, and Maya stepped out with her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She saw him and lifted both arms. Daddy? Daniel reached her in 3 strides and crouched. Are you okay? The lunch lady said the pipes made a bad smell, she said. Mrs. Larkin said I had to go home. Daniel pulled her close. Her hair smelled like strawberry shampoo and pencil shavings. You should have called me. I did. The office called too. I know. Maya leaned back and looked at his face. Did I do something wrong? No. Then why are you squeezing me so hard? Daniel loosened his arms. You didn't do anything wrong. Evelyn came through the lobby doors behind them, breathing fast. The school had no other approved pickup, she said. They had your work address in the file. I couldn't reach you until the shuttle was already here. It's okay, Daniel said. Thank you. Maya looked past him toward the pool courtyard. Why are people standing by the flowers? Daniel followed her gaze. The residents had gathered behind the planters, exactly where Evelyn had directed them. Grant stood near the cabana, arguing with the investors. The white event banners snapped in the wind above his head. There's a maintenance problem, Daniel said. Like your pool? Not my pool. Maya considered that. Then she pointed at the water. The surface had changed. At first, Daniel thought it was only wind, but the movement was coming from below. Small circles opened near the deep end, spreading outward, overlapping, then vanishing. The little boy in goggles stood beside his mother again. He was watching too. Grant saw Maya. His eyes traveled from Daniel's work shirt to the child's backpack. Then he walked toward them. Daniel, he said, loud enough for nearby residents to hear. This is becoming inappropriate. Daniel stood. Maya is leaving with me. Good. Because children should not be around someone who creates a safety panic. Maya's fingers curled around Daniel's hand. Evelyn inhaled sharply. Daniel looked at Grant. She is not part of this. Grant raised both hands. I'm simply saying that if you had concerns, you should have handled them professionally. Instead, you turned a routine maintenance issue into a spectacle. You frightened residents. You frightened your own daughter. Maya looked up at Daniel. Did you make the pool sick? She asked. Grant's expression flickered. Daniel knelt beside her. The pool has a problem, he said softly. I'm trying to keep people safe. Like you fix things? Yes. Can you fix it? Daniel glanced at the water. A new line of moisture appeared between 2 deck tiles. He stood. I can help stop it from getting worse. Grant laughed under his breath. You are still suspended. Daniel faced him. You can fire me after everyone is safe. Then a sharp pop came from beneath the deep end. The water jumped, and this time every person in the courtyard saw it. The sound did not resemble a burst pipe. It was deeper than that. A heavy udar beneath the tile. A blunt impact from somewhere inside the structure. The water near the deep end lifted in one smooth, unnatural swell. Then the first tile cracked. A thin black line ran across the pale stone and disappeared beneath a lounge chair. For one breath, the entire courtyard went silent. Then everyone moved at once. The mother grabbed the boy in goggles. The marketing assistants abandoned their tables. A resident knocked over a vase of white orchids as he backed into the planter wall. Daniel put one arm around Maya and pulled her behind him. Evelyn, he said, get everyone inside the lobby. Use the north doors. Keep them off this deck. Evelyn nodded and shouted for security. Grant stepped forward, face pale beneath the morning sun. No one is going anywhere, he snapped. We are not evacuating the building over a cracked tile. Daniel turned to him. The deck could be hollowing out underneath. You don't know that. I know enough. Grant pointed at the pool. You want a disaster because it proves you were right. Maya pressed her cheek against Daniel's side. He looked down at her. Stay with Mrs. Park, he said. I want to stay with you, I know. The second crack split across the tile. This one opened wide enough for water to push through. Daniel crouched, lifted Maya's backpack from her shoulders and handed it to Evelyn. Take her inside. Maya clutched his wrist. The shell bracelet had shifted beneath his sleeve. Daddy. Daniel knelt in front of her. The courtyard noise blurred around them, the shouted orders. The scraping chairs, the hiss of water against hot tile. He put both hands gently on Maya's shoulders. Look at me. She did, Mrs. Park is going to take you to the lobby. You stay where she can see you. You do not come back outside. Understand? But you're staying. I have to help. Because the pool is sick? Daniel looked toward the deep end. A new bubble rose through the water, large enough to break the surface with a dull gulp. Yes, he said, and people are too close to it. Maya's mouth tightened. She reached into the front pocket of her backpack and pulled out the drawing she had given him yesterday. The edges were bent now. My dad fixes things, she said. Daniel took the paper, his throat tightened, but his voice stayed calm. I'll see you in the lobby. Maya nodded once. Then Evelyn led her away. Daniel stood and watched until the glass doors closed behind them. Only then did he turn back. Grant was on the phone. Yes, he was saying. I need you here immediately. No, don't call the city yet. We can assess internally. Daniel walked toward the locked gate. Call emergency services, he said. Grant covered the phone. I'm handling it. You can't handle a structural pressure failure with a private contractor. You're not an engineer. Daniel looked at him. Grant's eyes narrowed. Then, almost as if he regretted saying it, he added, not anymore. Daniel said nothing. He pulled a multi-tool from his belt and examined the lockbox beside the gate. The emergency key was gone, but the box had a manual release screw beneath its cover plate. Grant saw what he was doing. Do not touch that. Daniel removed the first screw. I'm accessing the emergency system. You are suspended. Daniel removed the second. You said that. A security guard hurried across the courtyard. He was young, broad-shouldered, and visibly unsure where to stand. Mr. Holloway, he said, the lobby is filling up. Some residents are asking if they should leave the building. Grant turned on him. Tell them this is a maintenance issue. Nothing more. Daniel looked at the guard. Has the fire department been called? The guard glanced at Grant. No, sir. Call them. Grant stepped between them. Don't you dare. The guard froze. Daniel held his gaze. This is not a question of whether Mr. Holloway is embarrassed, Daniel said. It is a question of whether this deck fails while people are still standing around it. The guard looked at the widening crack. Then he pulled out his phone. Grant grabbed his wrist. Put that away. Everything stopped. The guard stared at Grant's hand on his arm. Daniel saw Evelyn through the lobby glass. Maya stood beside her, one hand pressed against the window. Daniel's voice dropped. Let him go. Grant did not. The guard swallowed. Then a loud snap came from under the pool deck. The tile beneath the nearest lounge chair sank half an inch. Grant released the guard. The guard stepped back and called emergency services. Grant looked at Daniel with open hatred now. You think this makes you important, he said. Daniel kept working on the lockbox. No. You think people will thank you? No, then why? Daniel loosened the final screw and lifted the cover plate. Inside was the manual release assembly, but the override cable had been cut cleanly. The end hung loose against the metal housing. Daniel stared at it. Grant saw it too. For the first time his face broke. Only a little, but it was enough. You cut the cable, Daniel said. I didn't touch anything. The key was removed, the valve was opened, the cable was cut. You have no proof. Daniel took a photograph. Then another. A siren sounded in the distance. Grant's phone began ringing. He looked at the screen and ignored it. The courtyard water had reached the bottom of the cabana steps. A cold stream ran toward the lobby doors. Daniel knew what would happen next if pressure kept building. The weakened coupling could split. The circulation line could dump thousands of gallons into the service level. Electrical equipment would be exposed. The deck might collapse around the damaged section. He needed access to the pump room. He needed to shut down the system by hand, but the pool gate was still locked. Daniel tested the metal bars, too heavy to force. The fire engine arrived 6 minutes later. By then, Harbor Crest's front courtyard had become a scene Grant could no longer contain. Red lights flashed against the tower glass. Firefighters moved through the lobby with radios clipped to their shoulders. Residents watched from behind the doors, their faces small and pale beyond the reflections. A captain in a yellow helmet listened as Daniel explained the pressure system. Grant interrupted twice. He's an employee, not a licensed professional. He's been suspended. He's overstating everything. The captain looked at Daniel's photographs, the wrong pipe, the split sealant, the cut override cable, the rising gauge. Then he looked toward the pool. What happens if we don't isolate it, he asked. Daniel answered without drama. Best case, the coupling fails and floods the equipment room, and worst case,